Captain Alex Morgan stood on the bridge of the hidden space station floating behind Earth's moon. For 300 years, humans had been watching and listening to the galaxy's most powerful beings talk about their world. The Galactic Council had no idea that the small blue planet they often laughed about was home to people who understood every word they said. The station was huge, built in secret over many decades. Thousands of humans worked there, watching the stars and learning about alien technology. They had powerful computers that could translate any alien language instantly. They knew about every war, every trade deal, and every secret the galaxy held. Alex had been the station commander for 10 years. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Today felt different from all the other days. Today the council was talking about Earth again, and their words were getting worse. "Commander," called out Officer Maria Santos from her workstation. "The council meeting is starting. Should I put it on the main screen?" Alex nodded. The large screen in front of them showed the council chambers. A massive room filled with hundreds of different alien species. Some looked like giant lizards, others like walking crystals. And some were so strange that humans had trouble understanding what they were looking at. The leader of the meeting was Chancellor Drac, a huge reptile-like creature with sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. He stood at the center of the chamber, his voice booming through the speakers. "Today we discuss the small system with the yellow star," Drac said, his voice full of mockery. "The third planet there has creatures that look almost intelligent, but they are clearly too stupid to matter." Laughter filled the chamber. Hundreds of alien voices joined together in making fun of humanity. Alex felt his hands tighten into fists, but he kept his face calm. This was not the first time he had heard such words. Dr. Rachel Kim, the station's head scientist, was typing quickly at her computer. She looked up at Alex with worried eyes. "They are talking about mining our solar system. They want to take all our resources." On the screen, another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant insect with multiple arms and glowing green eyes. "The mammals on that planet are violent and stupid. They fight each other constantly. We should put them in cages and study them before they die out." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Alex watched as being stood up to make jokes about humanity. They called humans hairless apes and violent animals. They said humans would destroy themselves soon and save the galaxy the trouble of dealing with them. "Look at their primitive technology," said a voice that sounded like singing crystals. "They can barely reach their own moon. It will take them thousands of years to become a real threat to anyone." Alex almost smiled at that comment. If only they knew the truth. While the aliens thought humans were still using simple rockets, Earth had actually built ships that could travel faster than light. They had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. They had technology that the Council had never seen before. The secret had been kept for 3 centuries. When humans first heard alien voices from space, the world's leaders made a difficult choice. Instead of trying to talk to the aliens right away, they decided to watch and learn in silence. They built hidden bases on the moon and in deep space. They studied alien technology and improved on it. They prepared for the day when they would finally reveal themselves. "Commander," Officer Santos called out again. "Something big is happening. They are taking a vote." Alex watched as the council members began to raise their hands, claws, tentacles, and other body parts to cast their votes. The translation appeared on the screen in simple English words. "Vote to claim Sol system after human species dies out naturally." One by one, every single council member voted yes. Not one alien spoke up for humanity. Not one voice suggested that maybe humans deserved to live in peace on their own planet. Alex felt something cold settle in his chest. For 300 years, humans had listened to insults and threats. They had been patient. They had hoped that maybe the aliens would change their minds about Earth. But now the Council had made their choice official. "They planned to take everything humanity owned. Dr. Kim," Alex said quietly, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Council just voted to steal our entire solar system." Dr. Kim's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. "Message sent, Commander. What do we do now?" Alex looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had dedicated their lives to watching the galaxy and protecting Earth. They had families back home who had no idea that aliens even existed. For 3 centuries, people like them had kept the secret, waiting for the right moment to act. "Now we prepare," Alex said. "Captain Torres, what is the status of our deep space scouts?" Captain Isabella Torres, a woman with short black hair and sharp eyes, checked her instruments. All scout ships are in position, sir. They have been watching Council military movements for months. We know where their fleets are and what weapons they carry. And our new ships? The Earth Defense Fleet finished their final tests last week. 200 ships are ready for action. The aliens have never seen technology like ours. Alex nodded. While the Council thought humans were primitive and weak, Earth had actually built the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Human engineers had taken alien technology and made it better. Human scientists had discovered new ways to travel through space and new types of weapons. The aliens had made one huge mistake. They thought that because humans seemed violent and emotional, they must be stupid. They never considered that human emotions could be controlled and focused. They never imagined that human creativity could solve problems that alien minds could not. Sir? Dr. Kim interrupted. The Council is still talking. Chancellor Drack is making another speech. Alex turned back to the screen. The huge reptile was standing with his arms spread wide, addressing the entire Council. In 50 years we will return to the Sol system, Drack announced. By then the humans will have destroyed themselves and we can begin mining operations. Their planet has rich resources that will serve the Council well. The chamber erupted in cheers and applause. Hundreds of alien voices celebrated the future destruction of humanity and the theft of their world. Alex had heard enough. He turned to his communications officer, Lieutenant David Park. Open a channel to all human stations in the galaxy. Channel open, sir. Alex took a deep breath. The next words he spoke would change everything. For 300 years, humanity had remained silent while the galaxy mocked them and threatened them. That silence was about to end. This is Commander Alex Morgan of Luna Station. As of today, Operation Silent Watch is over. The Galactic Council has just voted to claim our solar system after our species dies out. They have made their intentions clear. It is time to show them what humanity is really capable of. He paused, looking at each member of his crew. These brave men and women would be part of history. They would be the ones who helped humanity step out of the shadows and take their place among the stars. Send the activation codes to all Earth defense ships. Alert all deep space stations. In 48 hours, we make first contact with the Galactic Council, and we make sure they understand that they have seriously underestimated the human race. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of computers and the distant voices of aliens still celebrating what they thought would be humanity's doom. None of them knew that they had just awakened something that had been watching them for centuries, learning their weaknesses, and preparing for this exact moment. The alert reached every corner of the solar system within minutes. On Mars, Colonel James Wright received the message while inspecting the massive military base hidden beneath the planet's surface. On Europa, Captain Lisa Chen watched her submarine fleet emerge from the icy moon's underground oceans. In the asteroid belt, Commander Robert Hayes powered up the weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment for decades. Earth Defense Command was located deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. General Patricia Stone stood in the war room, surrounded by screens showing the positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. She was a small woman with silver hair, but her presence filled the room. Every officer in the command center looked to her for orders. How long until our ships reach the Council's main fleet? She asked. Admiral Thomas Russell, a large man with a gray beard, checked his tactical display. Our fastest ships are already in position near the Council worlds. The main fleet can be there in 6 hours. And their military strength? Intelligence reports show they have about 5,000 ships spread across their territory. Most of them are older designs with simple weapons. They rely on overwhelming numbers rather than advanced technology. General Stone smiled. The Council had no idea what they were about to face. While they had been laughing at humanity for centuries, human engineers had been working day and night to build something the galaxy had never seen before. What about the new shields? All ships are equipped with Mark 7 energy barriers. Council weapons will not be able to penetrate them. Our tests showed that it would take their entire fleet working together just to damage one of our destroyers. The room buzzed with quiet excitement. Everyone knew this moment had been coming for a long time. Years of training, planning, and building had led to this day. Humanity was finally ready to reveal itself to the galaxy. On the main screen, they could still see the Council chambers. The aliens were still celebrating their vote to claim Earth's solar system. They had no idea that human ships were already moving into position around their most important worlds. General, called out Captain Sarah Mitchell from the communications station. We are receiving reports from our scout ships. They have been watching the Council's military bases. Most of their fleets are scattered and unprepared for battle. Perfect, General Stone replied. They have no reason to expect an attack. As far as they know, humans do not even have space travel yet. She turned to the large tactical map that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Council military positions, while blue dots showed human forces. For the first time in 300 years, there were almost as many blue dots as red ones. Begin Phase 1, she ordered. I want every major Council world to know we exist, but I do not want any casualties yet. This is still a diplomatic mission. Yes, General. All ships are receiving orders now. Across the galaxy, human commanders received their instructions. Captain Mark Johnson of the destroyer Hope's Edge was one of the first to move. His ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel just outside the Draconian home system, where Chancellor Drac ruled his empire. Sir, reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, we are detecting massive energy signatures. Their defense fleet has over 300 ships. Any movement toward us? No, sir. They do not seem to have noticed us yet. Captain Johnson smiled. Human stealth technology was another advantage the Council knew nothing about. His ship could remain invisible to their sensors until he chose to reveal himself. Open a channel to their fleet command. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Mark Johnson of the Earth Defense Forces. I am requesting permission to speak with Chancellor Drac. The response was immediate chaos. The draconian communication channels filled with confused voices speaking in their harsh reptilian language. For several minutes, no one responded to Johnson's message. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It was deep and angry, speaking accented English. What is Earth Defense Forces? How do you speak our language? What kind of trick is this? No trick, Johnson replied calmly. We are humans from the planet Earth in the Sol system. We have been listening to your council meetings for a long time. We heard your vote today. More confused voices filled the channel. The word humans was repeated over and over in dozens of different alien languages. Johnson could hear the panic beginning to spread through their communications. Impossible, the draconian voice finally said. Humans are primitive. They do not have space travel. I think you need to update your information, Johnson said. Please inform Chancellor Drac that humanity would like to schedule a meeting with the Galactic Council. At the same time, similar conversations were happening around other major council worlds. Human ships appeared near the Hivery Hive worlds, the Netherian crystal cities, and the Vorthani trade centers. Each captain delivered the same message. Humanity was real, they were advanced, and they wanted to talk. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Within an hour, every major government in the galaxy was in emergency session. The council chambers filled with panicked voices as representatives tried to understand what was happening. Back on Luna Station, Commander Alex Morgan watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. The main screen showed feed after feed of confused aliens trying to figure out how humans had suddenly appeared throughout their territory. Sir, Officer Santos reported, we are picking up thousands of emergency transmissions. Every council world is trying to contact their military forces. Any hostile movements? None yet, sir. They seem too confused to organize an attack. Dr. Rachel Kim looked up from her computer with a worried expression. Commander, I am detecting some concerning messages. Several council members are calling this an invasion. They are demanding military action. Alex nodded. This was expected. Some of the more aggressive alien species would want to attack first and ask questions later. That was why the Earth Defense Fleet was already in position. Dr. Kim, prepare a message for broadcast to the entire council. Make sure every member receives it. Ready, sir. Alex straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. This would be the first time most aliens had ever seen a human face. He wanted to make a good impression, but he also wanted them to understand that humanity was not to be taken lightly. Members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice calm and professional. I am Commander Alex Morgan, representing the planet Earth and the human species. For 300 years we have been watching your civilization and learning from your example. He paused, letting that information sink in. Across the galaxy, alien leaders were realizing that humans had been spying on them for centuries without being detected. Today, your council voted to claim our solar system after our species destroys itself. We feel this vote was made without proper information about our capabilities. We would like to request a formal meeting to discuss this matter. Another pause. Alex could imagine the chaos this simple request was causing in government buildings across the galaxy. We have positioned ships near several of your worlds as a demonstration of our peaceful intentions. These ships are equipped with advanced defensive systems, but they carry no offensive weapons. We wish to talk, not fight. That was not entirely true. The ships carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built, but the aliens did not need to know that yet. We will remain in our current positions for 72 hours, waiting for your response. We hope the Council will agree to meet with us and discuss our mutual future in this galaxy. Alex stopped the recording and turned to his crew. Send that to every government in the galaxy. Make sure they all receive it. Message sent, sir. Now came the waiting. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy after centuries of hiding. The next few days would determine whether this first contact would lead to peace or war. Sir, Captain Torres called out, we are receiving a priority message from General Stone. Put it through. General Stone's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was serious but confident. Commander, excellent work. The Council is in complete chaos. Half of them think this is some kind of elaborate hoax. The other half are panicking about a human invasion. What are your orders, General? Maintain position and wait for their response. Our intelligence suggests they will need at least 24 hours to organize any kind of coherent reaction. Use that time to prepare for anything. Understood, General. The transmission ended and Alex looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of alien leaders were trying to decide how to respond to humanity's sudden appearance. Some would want peace. Others would want war. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. Chancellor Drac paced back and forth in his private chambers, his massive claws clicking against the metal floor. The reports coming in from across the galaxy made no sense. Humans were supposed to be primitive animals who had barely learned to use fire. Now they were claiming to have faster-than-light ships and advanced technology. This has to be some kind of trick, he growled to his military advisor, General Korth. Maybe another council member is playing games with us. General Korth was studying data on his portable screen. He was smaller than the Chancellor but covered in thick armor plates. Sir, our sensors confirm that there are unknown ships near 17 different council worlds. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Could they be using captured council technology? Possible, but unlikely. These readings suggest power sources far more advanced than anything we have built. Drax slammed his fist against the wall, leaving deep scratches in the metal. How could we have been so wrong about them? Our scouts have been watching their planet for centuries. Sir, if I may suggest something, General Korth said carefully. Perhaps our scouts were only seeing what the humans wanted them to see. The idea made Drax's blood run cold. If humans had been hiding their true capabilities for centuries, it meant they were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. It also meant they had been listening to every council meeting, learning every secret and planning for this moment. Get me a communication channel to the human ship in our system, Drax ordered. I want to speak with their commander directly. Meanwhile, on the crystal world of Nethys, the ruling council of the Netherian Collective was having their own emergency meeting. Unlike other species, the Netherians communicated through harmonic vibrations that created beautiful music when they spoke together. The current song was anything but beautiful. Fear and confusion created harsh, discordant notes that made the crystal structures around them resonate uncomfortably. High Resonator, Lith spoke first, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The humans claim they have been watching us for 300 cycles. How is this possible without our detection? Their stealth technology appears to be centuries ahead of our own, replied Deep-Tone Vex, his voice like a bass drum. The ship near our system appeared without any warning from our defense grid. What do we know about their intentions? Asked Crystal Singer Mel, her voice high and sharp like breaking glass. They claim to want peace, Vex responded, but they have positioned military vessels throughout our territory. This could be the beginning of an invasion. The collective continued their musical debate, but underneath their words was a growing fear. Humans had always been dismissed as violent and unpredictable. If they now possessed advanced technology, they could be the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. In the insectoid hive worlds of the Hivari, the reaction was entirely different. Queen Mother Zik stood before her war council, her 6 arms gesturing rapidly as she spoke in the clicking language of her people. The humans reveal themselves now because they are ready for war, she declared, her mandibles snapping together for emphasis. They have been preparing while we dismiss them as harmless. Should we attack first? asked General Thak, his smaller form bristling with natural weapons. Not yet, the Queen Mother replied. We must learn more about their capabilities. Send scouts to observe their ships but do not engage. If they are as advanced as they claim, we need to understand their weaknesses before we strike. The Hivari had always been the most aggressive member of the Council. Their insect-like nature made them see everything in terms of threats to be eliminated or resources to be claimed. Humans had just become the biggest threat they had ever encountered. Back in the Council chambers, emergency sessions had been running non-stop for 18 hours. Representatives from hundreds of species argued about how to respond to humanity's sudden appearance. Council Speaker Vel, a tall, thin creature with purple skin and 4 eyes, tried to maintain order as voices rose in anger and fear throughout the vast chamber. Order! We must have order! Vel shouted, his voice amplified by the chamber's sound systems. We cannot make decisions while everyone is shouting. Slowly, the noise died down enough for individuals to be heard. I say we destroy them immediately, declared War Chief Gron of the Brutari Empire. The massive, armor-plated alien stood nearly 3 meters tall and had natural weapons growing from his arms. They dare to threaten the Council with their ships. This insult cannot be tolerated. Calm yourself, Gron, replied Ambassador Silk of the Peaceful Union. The floating, jellyfish-like creature spoke in a gentle voice that somehow carried throughout the chamber. Violence should be our last option, not our first. We should at least listen to what they have to say. Listen to primitives? Gron roared. They are animals pretending to be civilized. We should have eliminated them centuries ago. If they were truly primitive, interrupted Science Advisor Nook of the Academic Collective. How did they develop stealth technology superior to our own? How did they listen to our private communications for 300 years without detection? That question silenced the chamber. Everyone had been avoiding the obvious conclusion, but it could no longer be ignored. Humans were not primitive. They might actually be the most advanced species the galaxy had ever encountered. What do we actually know about human technology? Asked Council Speaker Veldot. Science Advisor Nook activated a holographic display that showed data collected from the human ships. Very little. Our sensors can detect their ship's presence, but we cannot penetrate their hulls to examine their internal systems. Their energy signatures suggest power sources at least 50% more efficient than our best reactors. What about their weapons? Unknown. The ships they have positioned near our worlds appear to be defensive in nature, but that could be misleading. If their defensive technology is this advanced, their offensive capabilities could be devastating. The chamber fell silent again as everyone contemplated the implications. For centuries, the Council had believed they were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Now they were faced with the possibility that they had been completely wrong. We need more information, Speaker Vel finally declared. I propose we agree to meet with the human representatives, but under strict security conditions. Where would such a meeting take place? Asked Ambassador Silk. Neutral space, suggested Admiral Core of the Council Defense Force. Far from any inhabited worlds, in case this is some kind of trap. And what would we discuss? Asked Science Advisor Nook. Speaker Vel looked around the chamber at the hundreds of worried faces staring back at him. We discussed the future of this galaxy, and whether there is room in it for both the Council and humanity. The vote was close, but it passed. The Council would meet with the humans, but they would do so carefully and with their entire military on high alert. On Luna Station, Commander Alex Morgan received the Council's response with mixed feelings. They had agreed to meet, which was good, but their insistence on bringing heavy military escorts and meeting in neutral space showed they were taking no chances. What do you think, Dr. Kim? He asked the xenolinguist who had been monitoring Council communications. They are terrified, she replied honestly. The idea that humans have been watching them for centuries has shaken their entire understanding of the galaxy. Some of them want to attack us immediately, but cooler heads are prevailing for now. How long do we have before they might change their minds? Hard to say. If any of their military leaders decide we are too dangerous to negotiate with, things could turn violent very quickly. Alex nodded. The next few days would be crucial. Humanity had revealed itself and requested a meeting. Now they had to prove they were worth talking to, rather than simply destroying. Send a message to General Stone, he ordered. Tell her the Council has agreed to meet, but they are bringing their entire fleet. We need to be ready for anything. The meeting location was chosen, an empty star system on the edge of Council space, far from any inhabited worlds. In 3 days, the two most powerful forces in the galaxy would come face to face for the first time. Neither side knew if they would be negotiating a peace treaty or starting the biggest war in galactic history. The empty star system designated as Meeting Point Alpha had never seen so many ships in one place. On one side of the system, nearly 1,000 Council vessels formed massive defensive formations. Their hulls gleamed with weapons and shields ready for battle at a moment's notice. On the other side, 50 human ships waited in perfect formation. They were smaller in number but larger in size, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the starlight around them. To the Council forces, they looked alien and threatening in a way that made even veteran commanders nervous. General Patricia Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the Council fleet through her tactical displays. She had chosen to attend the meeting personally, bringing with her humanity's best diplomats and most experienced military officers. "Admiral Russell, what do you make of their formation?" she asked. Admiral Thomas Russell studied the enemy positions with the eye of someone who had spent decades in space warfare. Classic defensive posture, but with some interesting modifications. They are keeping their most powerful ships in the center, with smaller vessels forming protective screens. They are definitely expecting a fight. Can we handle them if negotiations break down? Without question, General. Our ships are individually superior to anything they have. Our shields are stronger, our weapons are more powerful, and our technology is at least a century ahead of theirs. The only advantage they have is numbers. General Stone nodded. The human fleet might be outnumbered 20-1, but every simulation had shown the same result. Human technology was simply too advanced for the Council to match. Signal the Council flagship. Tell them we are ready to begin negotiations. The response came back quickly. Council delegation is prepared to board your vessel for talks. Negative, Stone replied firmly. The meeting will take place on neutral ground. We have prepared a station for this purpose. Between the two fleets, a small space station materialized as its cloaking field deactivated. It was a simple structure, built specifically for this meeting with no weapons and minimal defenses. Both sides could scan it freely to confirm it posed no threat. Impressive, Admiral Russell commented. They did not detect the station until we revealed it. Their sensors are definitely inferior to ours. The Council delegation took nearly an hour to organize their team and travel to the station. When they finally arrived, General Stone watched them through security cameras as they moved through the docking bay. Chancellor Drack led the group, his massive reptilian form making even the large docking bay seem small. Behind him came representatives from a dozen different species, the crystal-like Netherians, the insectoid Hivari, the armored Brutari, and others that Stone recognized from intelligence reports. Quite a collection, she murmured to her aide, Colonel Jennifer Wright. They brought their most powerful leaders. Are you concerned about security, General? Not at all. This station has enough firepower hidden in its walls to destroy their entire delegation if necessary. But I do not think it will come to that. Stone's own delegation was much smaller. Herself, Admiral Russell, Ambassador Michael Torres, and Dr. Rachel Kim as a translator and xenobiology expert. They made their way to the station's main conference room, where a large circular table had been set up. The first few minutes were tense as both groups sized each other up. The aliens had never seen humans before, and their reactions ranged from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. Chancellor Drack in particular kept his predator's eyes fixed on General Stone, as if trying to decide whether she was prey or a rival predator. I am General Patricia Stone of the Earth Defense Forces, she began, speaking clearly so the translation systems could process her words. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I am Chancellor Drack of the Draconian Empire and current head of the Council Military Committee, the large reptile replied. His voice was deep and threatening, designed to intimidate. We are here because your species has committed acts of aggression against the Galactic Council. Aggression? Stone raised an eyebrow. We have not fired a single shot or threatened any of your worlds. We simply requested a meeting. You positioned military vessels throughout our territory without permission, interjected War Chief Gron of the Brutari. In our culture, this is an act of war. In our culture, Ambassador Torres replied smoothly. It is called making an appointment. We needed to get your attention, and diplomatic messages would have been ignored. High Resonator Lith of the Netherian spoke next, her voice creating musical tones that the translation system rendered into English. We are curious about your species' development. Our records show humans as primitive beings with simple technology. How do you explain this discrepancy? Dr. Kim leaned forward. Your records are 300 years out of date. You based your opinions on limited observations and never bothered to update your information. Because we assumed you were too primitive to matter, Chancellor Drack admitted bluntly. Your species seemed violent and self-destructive. We expected you to eliminate yourselves. Well, General Stone said with a slight smile, we are sorry to disappoint you. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Both sides were being polite, but everyone knew this meeting could turn violent at any moment. Science Advisor Nook of the Academic Collective activated a holographic display. We have been analyzing your ships since this meeting began. Their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than our own. Where did you acquire these capabilities? We developed them ourselves, Admiral Russell answered. Human scientists and engineers have been working for centuries to improve our technology. Impossible, declared General Korth, Chancellor Drack's military advisor. No species develops technology that quickly without outside help. You must have stolen our designs or made deals with our enemies. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. General Stone felt her patience beginning to wear thin. She had come here hoping for peaceful negotiations, but the aliens seemed determined to be insulting. Let me be very clear, she said, her voice becoming cold and professional. Humanity developed our technology without stealing anything from anyone. The fact that it is more advanced than yours simply means our scientists are better than yours. Chancellor Drack's eyes blazed with anger. You dare claim superiority over the Council? I dare claim superiority over anyone who spends 300 years making jokes about my species while we quietly build technology that makes your entire fleet obsolete. The room erupted in angry voices as the alien delegation reacted to Stone's words. Some shouted insults in their native languages while others demanded proof of human claims. Ambassador Torres tried to restore calm. Perhaps we should focus on the future rather than the past. The question is not who is superior, but whether we can coexist peacefully. Coexist? War Chief Gron laughed harshly.
Your species has been spying on us for centuries.
You have violated our privacy and stolen our secrets. Why should we trust you? Because, General Stone said quietly, if we wanted to hurt you, you would already be dead. The simple statement silenced the room. Everyone present understood the implication. Human ships were positioned throughout Council space, armed with weapons the aliens could not match. If humanity had wanted to start a war, they could have destroyed the Council's most important worlds before anyone knew what was happening. What do you want from us? Chancellor Drack asked finally. General Stone looked around the table at the assembled alien leaders. These beings had spent centuries dismissing humanity as primitive and planning to steal their world. Now they were learning that their intended victims were actually their superiors in every way that mattered. We want the same thing any species wants, she replied. The right to exist in peace, to control our own territory, and to be treated with respect. And if we refuse? Stone's smile was not friendly. Then you will learn why humans have survived and thrived for thousands of years, while other species have come and gone. We are very good at protecting what is ours. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the tone had been set. The Council was beginning to understand that they were no longer the dominant power in the galaxy. Humanity had emerged from the shadows stronger and more advanced than anyone had imagined. As the session ended and both delegations prepared to return to their ships, Chancellor Drack approached General Stone privately. This is not over, he said quietly. The Council will not simply accept human dominance without a fight. I hope you reconsider that position, Stone replied. But if you choose to fight, you should know that you will lose. The only question is how many of your people die before you surrender. As the aliens departed, General Stone watched them go with mixed feelings. She had hoped this meeting would lead to peaceful relations, but it was becoming clear that some members of the Council would never accept humanity as equals. The real test was yet to come. 3 days after the meeting at Alpha Station, the galaxy was on the edge of war. The Council had split into two factions. Those who wanted to negotiate with humanity and those who wanted to destroy them before they became an even greater threat. Chancellor Drac stood before the full council assembly, his massive form radiating anger and determination. Behind him, holographic displays showed the positions of human ships throughout council space. "Fellow members," he began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber, "we face the greatest threat our civilization has ever known. These humans have been watching us, learning our weaknesses, and preparing to conquer us. We must act now while we still can." "You speak of conquest," interrupted Ambassador Silk of the Peaceful Union. "But they have made no aggressive moves. Their ships remain in defensive positions. Defensive positions that happen to cover our most important worlds," War Chief Gron added. "They could attack any of our major cities within hours." High Resonator Lith created a complex harmonic pattern that the translation systems rendered as worry and uncertainty. "We still know very little about their true capabilities. Perhaps we should attempt further negotiations." "Negotiations?" Drac roared. "They insulted the entire council. They claimed their technology makes our fleets obsolete. They threatened us with destruction if we do not submit to their demands." Science Advisor Nook activated his personal display. "Actually, Chancellor, a review of the meeting transcripts shows that General Stone only made threats in response to direct challenges. Her initial proposals were quite reasonable." "Reasonable?" Drac's eyes blazed. "They want us to recognize their claim to the Sol system and grant them equal status in the Council. They want to go from unknown primitives to major galactic power overnight." "Perhaps," said Council Speaker Vel carefully, "because they already are a major galactic power. We simply failed to recognize it." The chamber erupted in arguments as representatives from hundreds of species debated humanity's fate. Some called for immediate military action, while others urged caution and diplomacy. Meanwhile, on Luna Station, Commander Alex Morgan was monitoring the Council's communications with growing concern. The debate had been going on for 3 days, and the military faction was gaining support. "Dr. Kim," he called out, "what is your assessment of the situation?" Dr. Rachel Kim looked up from her analysis screens with a worried expression. "It is not good, Commander. Chancellor Drac has convinced about 40% of the Council that we represent an existential threat. Another 30% are undecided. Only 30% are clearly in favor of peaceful negotiations. What about their military preparations?" Captain Isabella Torres answered from her tactical station. "Council fleets are mobilizing throughout their territory. They are pulling ships back from frontier zones and concentrating them near major population centers. It looks like they are preparing for a major offensive." Alex felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Humanity had hoped their display of advanced technology would convince the Council to negotiate rather than fight. Instead, it seemed to have triggered exactly the opposite reaction. "How long before they are ready to attack?" "Intelligence estimates 72 hours, Torres replied. "They need time to coordinate between different species' fleets and plan their strategy." Alex opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. General Stone's face appeared on the screen, and she looked as concerned as he felt. "Commander, I have been monitoring the situation. It appears diplomacy has failed." "What are your orders, General?" "Prepare for Operation Daybreak. If the Council wants to see what human military technology can really do, we will show them." Alex had hoped it would not come to this, but humanity had prepared for the possibility of war. Operation Daybreak was the contingency plan that would demonstrate human superiority so overwhelming that the Council would have no choice but to surrender. "General, are you certain this is necessary? Once we reveal our full capabilities, there will be no going back." "The Council has made their choice," Stone replied grimly. "They see our peaceful overtures as weakness. Perhaps they need to see our strength instead." The transmission ended and Alex turned to his crew. These men and women had spent their entire careers preparing for this moment, but he could see the worry in their eyes. They were about to participate in the largest military operation in human history. All stations prepare for Operation Daybreak. Send activation codes to all deep space assets. Across the galaxy, human forces that had remained hidden for centuries began to reveal themselves. Massive battleships uncloaked near major Council worlds. Orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as asteroids powered up their weapons. Secret bases on dozens of moons and planets began launching fighter squadrons. The effect was immediate and devastating to Council morale. In less than an hour, the number of known human ships increased from 50 to over 2,000. More importantly, these new vessels were clearly built for war. On the draconian homeworld, Chancellor Drac watched in horror as 50 human warships appeared in orbit around his planet. Each ship was larger than his most powerful dreadnought, and their energy signatures suggested weapons capable of destroying cities. How is this possible? He demanded of his military advisors. Where did these ships come from? They were there all along, General Korth replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Hidden by stealth technology we cannot detect. Sir, we have been completely blind to their true strength. Similar scenes were playing out throughout Council space. Every major world found itself under the guns of human warships that had appeared as if from nowhere. The message was clear. Humanity could have attacked at any time, and the Council would have been powerless to stop them. In the Council chambers, the debate had turned into pure panic. Representatives who had been calling for war now demanded immediate peace negotiations. The sight of human ships orbiting their homeworlds had a remarkable effect on their enthusiasm for combat. Order! Order! Council Speaker Vel shouted, trying to restore some semblance of control to the chaos. We must respond to this situation calmly. Calmly? Screamed War Chief Gron. There are human ships with enough firepower to glass my homeworld hanging in orbit above my capital city. How am I supposed to be calm? By remembering that those ships have not fired, Ambassador Silk pointed out. If the humans wanted to destroy us, they could have done so at any time. The fact that they have not suggests they still prefer negotiation to warfare, or they are toying with us, Chancellor Drac growled, showing us how helpless we are before they demand our surrender. Science Advisor Nook had been frantically analyzing data from the new human ships. Council members, I have preliminary analysis of the human fleet. The energy readings are unprecedented. Their smallest destroyers generate more power than our largest battleships. What are you saying? Speaker Vel asked. I am saying that if the humans decide to attack, our combined fleets would last approximately 6 hours in open combat. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For over 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had been the supreme military power in the galaxy. Now they were faced with a species that could destroy them completely without even breathing hard. What do they want? Someone called out from the back of the chamber. The same thing they wanted 3 days ago, Speaker Vel replied. Recognition, respect, and the right to control their own territory. And if we refuse? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's main communication system activated. General Stone's face appeared on the massive central screen, her expression serious but not hostile. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, I hope recent developments have helped clarify the situation for you. Humanity possesses the military strength to destroy your civilization completely. We have chosen not to use that strength because we prefer peace to war. The chamber was absolutely silent as hundreds of alien leaders listened to her words. However, Stone continued, we will not tolerate continued threats to our existence or attempts to claim our territory. The Sol system belongs to humanity and we will defend it with everything we have. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. I am offering the Council one final opportunity for peaceful negotiations. You have 24 hours to agree to formal peace talks or we will consider your silence an act of war. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the Council to contemplate their options. They could agree to negotiate with humanity as equals, or they could fight a war they could not possibly win. Chancellor Drac looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow council members. The arrogance and dismissive attitudes that had characterized their discussion of humanity for centuries were gone, replaced by fear and a growing understanding of just how completely they had underestimated their enemies. All in favor of accepting the human offer for peace negotiations? Speaker Vel called out. Nearly every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the chamber was raised. The vote was unanimous. For 300 years, humanity had remained silent while the galaxy mocked them and planned their destruction. That silence had finally ended, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of human dominance had begun, not through conquest or cruelty, but through the simple demonstration that sometimes the quiet ones are quiet because they have nothing left to prove. The Galactic Council had learned, too late, that it is dangerous to mistake patience for weakness and silence for ignorance. Humanity had been listening all along, and they had been preparing for this moment when the galaxy finally pushed them too far. The insults were over. The real conversation was just beginning. Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness of space, its many arms stretched out in all directions, each one bigger than most human cities. This was where humanity would meet its first alien neighbors. Ambassador Elena Voss walked onto the bridge, her formal dress uniform crisp and perfect. She had spent years preparing for this moment. Behind her came Dr. Maya Patel, the ship's science officer, carrying data tablets filled with information about human culture and history. "How long until we dock?" Voss asked, her voice calm, but Kane could hear the excitement underneath. 20 minutes, Ambassador," Kane replied. He had been a military captain for 15 years, but this mission felt different. They were not going to fight anyone. They were going to talk. They were going to make peace with beings from another world. The crew worked quietly at their stations. Chief Engineer Lisa Harper monitored the ship's systems from her post. Tactical Officer James Reed kept watch on the sensors, even though his weapons were powered down as a sign of peace. Everyone knew how important this day was for humanity. 3 months ago, the aliens had sent a message to Earth. They called themselves the Valdari Empire. Their message was simple. They wanted to meet and talk about peace between their peoples. The message came with coordinates for this neutral meeting place, Nexus Prime, which belonged to neither humans nor Valdari. The Valdari had built Nexus Prime years ago as a trading post. Now it would become the place where two civilizations would decide if they could live together in peace, or if they would become enemies. Kane watched as other ships moved around the station. Some looked like human vessels, but others were completely different. These alien ships had smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to flow like water. They were beautiful and strange at the same time. "Incoming transmission from Nexus Prime," announced Communications Officer Tom Bradley. "They're giving us docking instructions." "Put them through," Kane ordered. A voice spoke in perfect English, but with an odd accent that made every word sound musical. "Human vessel Harmony's Edge, you are cleared for docking Bay 7. Welcome to Nexus Prime." As they moved closer, Kane could see the Valdari ships more clearly. They were much larger than human vessels, and their hulls seemed to shimmer with their own light. He counted at least 12 of them docked at the station, which seemed like a lot for a peace meeting. "Ambassador," Dr. Patel said quietly, "the energy readings from those ships are quite impressive. Their technology appears to be significantly advanced." Voss nodded. She had studied all the reports about Valdari technology. Their ships could travel faster than anything humanity had built. Their weapons, based on what little they had shared, were powerful beyond human understanding. But they had come here to talk, not to fight. The docking process went smoothly. Kane felt the slight bump as the ship connected to the station. "We're secure," Harper reported from engineering. Voss straightened her uniform one more time. "Captain Kane, you and Dr. Patel will accompany me to the meeting. The rest of the crew will remain on the ship and monitor communications." They walked through the docking tube into Nexus Prime. The station's corridors were wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were made of some kind of metal that seemed to glow with soft light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, probably writing in the Valdari language. A figure waited for them in the reception area. Kane's first look at a living alien took his breath away. The Valdari was nearly 8 feet tall, with long arms and legs that moved with fluid grace. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer like its ships. Large, dark eyes dominated a face that was both beautiful and alien. "I am Diplomatic Aide Kellen," the Valdari said, its voice the same musical tone they had heard over the radio. "High Counselor Thane Mordak awaits your arrival in the primary conference chamber." They followed Kellen through the station's corridors. Kane noticed security cameras everywhere, and he wondered if they were being watched by more than just station personnel. The thought made him uncomfortable, but he kept his concerns to himself. The conference chamber was enormous, with a table that could seat 50 beings. Only a few chairs were occupied. High Counselor Thane Mordak sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 other Valdari officials. Mordak was even larger than Kellen and wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. "Ambassador Voss," Mordak said, rising from his chair, "welcome. I am honored to meet the representative of humanity." Voss stepped forward with confidence. "High Counselor Mordak, thank you for this opportunity." Humanity hopes this meeting will be the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. They sat down and the formal talks began. For the first hour, everything went well. They discussed basic things like trade routes and communication protocols. The Valdari seemed interested in human art and culture. They shared stories about their own civilization, which spanned hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. But slowly, Kane began to notice that something was wrong. The Valdari questions became more focused on human military capabilities and population numbers. They asked detailed questions about Earth's defenses and the locations of human colonies. Dr. Patel was taking notes on her tablet, but Kane saw her frown several times. She was noticing the same thing he was. "Tell me, Ambassador," Mordak said during a break in the discussions, "how many warships does humanity possess?" Voss hesitated. "High Counselor, we prefer not to discuss military matters during peace negotiations." Mordak's large eyes seemed to grow darker. "I ask only to understand your people's defensive capabilities. The galaxy can be a dangerous place. We want to ensure your people are properly protected." The way he said protected made Kane's skin crawl. It sounded more like a threat than an offer of help. As the day continued, the Valdari demands became more unreasonable. They wanted humanity to limit its expansion to only 3 star systems. They wanted all human military vessels to be registered with the Valdari Empire. They wanted the right to place advisors in human government. "These terms seem rather restrictive," Voss said carefully. "Perhaps we could discuss alternatives that would be more acceptable to both our peoples." Mordak leaned forward. "Ambassador, I fear you do not understand the situation. The Valdari Empire has maintained peace in this sector of the galaxy for 300 years. We do this by ensuring that all species follow certain guidelines for the greater good. And if a species chooses not to follow these guidelines?" Voss asked. The silence that followed was cold and heavy. Finally, one of the other Valdari officials spoke. "Then peace becomes impossible and other measures must be taken." Kane felt his hand move instinctively toward his sidearm, even though weapons were forbidden in the conference chamber. Dr. Patel had stopped taking notes and was staring at the aliens with growing alarm. "Perhaps we should take a recess," Voss suggested. "My people will need time to consider these proposals." "Of course," Mordak said, but his tone suggested he was not really giving them a choice. "We will reconvene tomorrow. I trust you will use the time wisely to consider the benefits of cooperation." As they were escorted back to their ship, Kane noticed more Valdari security personnel in the corridors. The station no longer felt like a neutral meeting place. It felt like a trap. Back on the Harmony's edge, Voss immediately called a private meeting with Kane and Dr. Patel. "This isn't diplomacy," she said quietly. "This is extortion." Kane nodded grimly. "They're not here to negotiate. They're here to dictate terms." Dr. Patel looked up from her tablet. "Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor readings from their ships. The energy signatures suggest weapon systems far beyond anything in our reports." "How far beyond?" Kane asked. "Far enough that resistance would be suicide," she replied. Voss was quiet for a moment, thinking. "We need to send a message to Earth immediately." Kane started to reply, but Bradley's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, you need to see this. Long-range sensors are picking up something big." They rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, Bradley had displayed a tactical readout showing the space around Nexus Prime. What they saw made everyone's blood run cold. Dozens of Valdari warships were moving into position just outside the neutral zone. Not the elegant diplomatic vessels they had seen at the station, but massive military dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. "How many?" Kane asked, though he dreaded the answer. "At least 40 capital ships, sir. Maybe more. They're staying just outside sensor range, but they're definitely there." Voss stared at the display. This was never about diplomacy. This was about keeping us distracted while they prepared for war. Kane looked at his crew. They were good people, brave people, but they were not soldiers. The Harmony's Edge was a diplomatic vessel, lightly armed and designed for exploration, not combat. Against a Valdari battle fleet, they would not last 5 minutes. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I think tomorrow's meeting is going to be very different from today's." Outside, in the darkness of space, the Valdari fleet continued to gather. And on Nexus Prime, High Counselor Thane Mordak smiled as he received reports of his ship's positions. The humans had no idea what was coming. Captain Kane barely slept that night. He spent hours on the bridge watching the sensor displays and thinking about the Valdari fleet, hiding in the darkness. Every few minutes, another ship would appear on the edge of their detection range. By morning, the enemy force had grown to over 60 vessels. Ambassador Voss joined him early, looking tired but determined. "Any word from Earth?" she asked. Communications Officer Bradley shook his head. "Nothing, Ambassador. All our transmissions are being blocked. The station is jamming our communications. So we're on our own," Voss said quietly. Kane nodded. "It looks that way. The question is, do we go to this morning's meeting or do we try to leave now?" Before Voss could answer, Kellen's voice came over the communication system. "Ambassador Voss, High Counselor Mordak requests your immediate presence in the conference chamber. He says the terms of yesterday's discussion have changed." Voss and Kane exchanged looks. They both knew this was not going to be good news. "Tell the High Counselor we will be there shortly," Voss replied. Kane called his senior officers to the bridge. "Listen carefully. Something bad is about to happen. I want all systems ready for emergency departure. Harper, can you get us more speed if we need it?" Chief Engineer Lisa Harper nodded. "I can give you emergency power, but it won't last long. Maybe 30 minutes at full burn." "Reed, what about weapons?" Tactical Officer James Reed looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we only have basic defensive systems. Against those ships out there, we might as well be throwing rocks." "Understood. Everyone stay ready. If this goes wrong, we're going to have to move fast." Kane accompanied Voss and Dr. Patel to the conference chamber again. This time the corridors were filled with Valdari security forces. Armed guards stood at every intersection, and Kane noticed that the weapons they carried were much more advanced than anything humanity possessed. The conference chamber felt different now. More Valdari officials were present, and they all looked stern and serious. High Counselor Mordak sat at the head of the table, but he was no longer wearing diplomatic robes. Instead, he wore what looked like military armor decorated with symbols of rank. "Ambassador Voss," Mordak said as they entered. "Please sit down. We have important matters to discuss." As soon as they were seated, Valdari guards moved to block the exits. Kane's hand moved toward his weapon, but Voss touched his arm and shook her head slightly. "High Counselor," Voss began, "I hope we can continue our discussions in the spirit of mutual respect and cooperation." Mordak's large eyes fixed on her with what might have been amusement. "Ambassador, I'm afraid the time for pretense has ended. Let me speak plainly about humanity's situation." He touched a control on the table and a holographic display appeared above them. It showed star charts of human space with red markers indicating human colonies and fleet positions. "Your species has spread to 14 worlds in the past century," Mordak continued. "Your population grows rapidly, and your technology advances at a concerning rate. The Valdari Empire has observed this expansion with growing alarm." "Alarm?" Dr. Patel spoke up. "We've harmed no one. Our colonies are peaceful. We've never attacked another species." "Perhaps not yet," said another Valdari official. "But history teaches us that young, aggressive species eventually become threats to galactic stability. The Valdari Empire has maintained peace for centuries by preventing such threats before they can mature." Kane felt his anger rising. "You're talking about destroying civilizations that haven't done anything wrong." "We prefer the term guided integration," Mordak replied coldly. "Humanity will not be destroyed. You will become part of the Valdari Empire. Your people will serve in useful capacities. Your worlds will be administered by Valdari governors. Your military will be disbanded." Voss stood up slowly. "And if humanity refuses these generous terms, then humanity will face the consequences of its refusal," Mordak said. "But you should know that refusal is not really an option." The holographic display changed, showing real-time images of space around Earth's major colonies. Valdari fleets were visible near every human world, positioned just outside weapons range but clearly ready to attack. "As we speak," Mordak continued, "Valdari peace enforcement fleets are in position around all human settlements. We hope to resolve this matter through negotiation, but we were prepared for other possibilities." Kane's worst fears were confirmed. This had been a trap from the beginning. While humanity's leaders focused on these peace talks, the Valdari had quietly surrounded every human world with overwhelming military force. "You planned this all along," Voss said, her voice filled with disgust. "The peace talks, the diplomatic protocols, all of it was just a distraction. An effective strategy," Mordak admitted. "Your people are so eager for peaceful contact that they willingly walked into our embrace. Now, Ambassador, You will send a message to your government instructing them to surrender immediately. This will prevent unnecessary casualties. I won't do it, Voss said firmly. Mordak sighed. I hoped you would be reasonable. Very well. Perhaps a demonstration will change your mind. He touched another control and the display showed Nexus Prime's exterior. Kane watched in horror as Valdari ships moved away from the station. Then, without warning, energy beams lanced out from the warships, striking the station's defensive platforms. The explosions were visible even through the thick walls of the conference chamber. The station's defenses are now offline, Mordak announced calmly. Your ship is trapped here, and in precisely 1 hour, if humanity has not agreed to our terms, the peace enforcement fleets will begin their work. Kane's comm badge chirped. Captain, came Harper's urgent voice, we're under attack. The station's defensive grid just went down and there are Valdari ships surrounding us. Understood, Kane replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Stand by for further orders, Mordak smiled. Your crew seems distressed, Captain. Perhaps you should return to your ship and help them understand their situation. What about Ambassador Voss and Dr. Patel? Kane demanded. They will remain here as our guests while you consider our offer, Mordak said. Do not worry. They will be treated well as long as humanity cooperates. Kane looked at Voss, who nodded slightly. She understood that he needed to get back to his ship if there was any hope of escape. I'll be back for them, Kane said to Mordak. I'm sure you will try, the Valdari leader replied. Kane left the conference chamber, escorted by guards who made sure he went directly to the docking bay. His mind raced as he tried to think of options. The Harmony's Edge was outgunned and outnumbered. Even if they could escape from Nexus Prime, where would they go? Every human world was under threat. Back on his ship, the crew was in controlled panic. Reed's tactical display showed Valdari vessels completely surrounding the station. Harper was working frantically to prepare the ship's systems for emergency departure. Captain, Bradley called out. I'm picking up transmissions from the Valdari fleet. They're coordinating attack patterns for human colonies. Sol, Centauri, New Geneva, all of them. Kane felt sick. Billions of human lives hung in the balance, and there was nothing he could do to warn them. The communication jamming was complete. Sir, Reed said quietly. There might be a way out of here. The Valdari ships are positioned to prevent long-range escape, but they're not covering the asteroid field on the station's dark side. If we could get there without being detected, we might be able to hide long enough to plan our next move. Kane studied the tactical display. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. Harper, how quietly can you take us out of dock? I can run on minimal power, sir. But once we start moving, they'll spot us quickly. We'll have to risk it. Reed, plot a course to the asteroid field. Use the station's mass to block their sensors as long as possible. As they prepared to leave, Kane thought about Ambassador Voss and Dr. Patel, trapped on the station with their captors. He also thought about Earth and all the human colonies, unaware that alien fleets were moving into attack positions. The Harmony's Edge slowly disengaged from the docking clamps. Harper used thruster bursts so small they barely registered on sensors. For several minutes they drifted away from Nexus Prime, hidden in the station's sensor shadow. Then alarms began sounding throughout the Valdari fleet. They've spotted us, Reed announced. Multiple ships moving to intercept. All power to engines, Kane ordered. Get us to those asteroids. The diplomatic vessel, never designed for combat or high-speed escapes, struggled to accelerate. Behind them, Valdari warships began to give chase, their weapons charging for what should have been an easy kill. But Kane had one advantage the aliens didn't expect. His ship was smaller and more maneuverable than their massive battlecruisers. As energy beams began to lance through space around them, Harper used every trick she knew to squeeze more speed from their engines. They reached the asteroid field just as the first Valdari ship got within effective weapons range. Kane felt the ship shudder as an energy beam clipped their rear shields. Shields down to 60%, Reed reported. But we're in the asteroids. They can't use their heavy weapons in here without risking damage to their own ships. Kane allowed himself a moment of relief. They had escaped immediate destruction, but their situation was still desperate. They were trapped in an asteroid field, cut off from human space, while Valdari fleets prepared to attack every human world. Somewhere behind them, on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Voss and Dr. Patel were prisoners of an alien empire that had just declared war on humanity. And in a few hours, unless something changed, that war would begin in earnest. Kane looked at his tired crew and made a decision that would change everything. They couldn't warn Earth in time to prevent the initial attacks, but maybe, just maybe, they could do something to help humanity fight back. "Harper," he said, "I need you to give me everything this ship has. Reed, start analyzing those Valdari vessels. I want to know their weaknesses." "Sir?" Reed looked confused. "What are you planning?" Kane stared at the tactical display showing the massive Valdari fleet. "We're going to war." 3 hours after their escape to the asteroid field, Kane and his crew watched in horror as reports came in from across human space. The Valdari had kept their promise. At exactly the appointed time, their fleets had begun attacking human colonies. Communications Officer Bradley managed to pick up fragments of transmissions despite the jamming. "Captain, I'm getting emergency broadcasts from New Geneva. The colony is under heavy bombardment. They're requesting immediate assistance." Kane closed his eyes. New Geneva was home to 2 million people, including his own sister and her family. There was nothing he could do to help them. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. "Negative, sir. All communication with Sol system has been cut off. But I did intercept a Valdari military transmission. They're reporting successful strikes on the outer defense grid." Dr. Patel's voice came over the intercom from the science lab. "Captain, could you come down here? I found something important." Kane made his way through the ship's corridors. The Harmony's edge had never seemed so small or so fragile. His crew of 200 people were now possibly the only free humans in this sector of space. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on him like a physical force. In the science lab, Dr. Patel had set up multiple displays showing Valdari ship configurations and energy readings. "Captain, I've been analyzing the sensor data from their fleet. There's something odd about their shield systems." "What kind of odd?" "Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern. Every few minutes they shift to a different energy wavelength. It makes them incredibly difficult to penetrate with conventional weapons." Kane frowned. "That doesn't sound like good news for us." "Actually, it might be. The frequency rotation follows a predictable pattern. If we could time our attacks precisely, we might be able to hit them during the brief moments when their shields are cycling between frequencies." Chief Engineer Harper appeared in the doorway. "Doctor, even if we could get through their shields, our weapons aren't powerful enough to damage ships that size." Dr. Patel smiled grimly. "That's where you're wrong, Lisa. I've been studying their ship designs. They're built for overwhelming firepower, not efficiency. Their power systems are actually quite vulnerable if you know where to hit them." She brought up a detailed schematic of a Valdari cruiser. "Look here at the main power coupling. It's exposed on the ventral hull, probably for maintenance access. A direct hit there would cause a cascade failure throughout their entire energy grid." Kane studied the display. "How certain are you about this?" 90% certain about the shield frequency pattern. About 70% on the power coupling vulnerability. It's our best chance, Captain." Harper shook her head. "Even if the doctor is right, we'd have to get close enough to target those specific points. And we'd have to do it while avoiding return fire from some of the most advanced weapons in the galaxy." "I know," Kane said quietly. "But what choice do we have? We can't warn Earth, we can't call for help. The only thing we can do is fight." Tactical Officer Reed joined them in the lab. "Captain, I've been monitoring Valdari fleet movements. There's a supply convoy heading toward the Sol system. 6 cargo ships with a light escort. If we could intercept them, we'd be attacking civilians," Kane pointed out. "No, sir. These are military supply vessels carrying weapons and ammunition to their invasion fleet. Taking them out might slow down their assault on Earth." Kane considered this. A supply convoy would be less heavily defended than the main battle fleet. It might be possible to attack them and escape before reinforcements arrived. "How many escort ships?" he asked. 3 cruisers, sir. Still outgunned, but much better odds than taking on their entire fleet." Kane made his decision. "Reed, plot an intercept course. Harper, I need maximum power to weapons and engines. Dr. Patel, prepare your frequency analysis. We're going hunting." The next few hours were spent in frantic preparation. Harper worked miracles in engineering, boosting their weapon output by 30%. Reed programmed the targeting computers with Dr. Patel's frequency data. The crew checked and rechecked every system. As they prepared to leave the asteroid field, Kane addressed his crew over the intercom. "Everyone listen carefully. We're about to attempt something that by all rights should be impossible. We're going to attack a Valdari convoy and try to live to tell about it." He paused, thinking about how to explain their situation without destroying morale. "I won't lie to you. Our chances aren't good, But right now we might be the only free human ship in this part of space. If we don't try to fight back, who will? The response surprised him. Instead of fear or despair, he heard determination in the voices that answered him. These people understood what was at stake. The Harmony's Edge slowly emerged from the asteroid field, its sensors scanning for the Valdari convoy. They found it 2 hours later, exactly where Reed had predicted. 6 large cargo vessels protected by 3 cruisers, moving toward human space at a steady pace. "Take us in slowly," Kane ordered. "Wait until we're at optimal range, then hit the lead escort ship." The distance closed agonizingly slowly. Kane watched the tactical display, knowing that at any moment the Valdari might detect them and open fire. Their only advantage was surprise, and they would only get one chance to use it. 15,000 kilometers, Reed announced. "Entering weapons range." "Wait for it," Kane said. "Dr. Patel, are you tracking their shield frequencies?" "Yes, sir. The pattern is exactly as I predicted. Shield rotation in 3, 2, 1. Now, fire," Kane shouted. The Harmony's Edge unleashed everything it had. Energy beams and missile salvos struck the lead Valdari cruiser, just as its shields were cycling. The shots that should have been harmlessly absorbed instead tore through the alien vessel's hull. Dr. Patel had been right about the power coupling. The cruiser's lights went out as its energy grid collapsed. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as systems overloaded, but their success lasted only moments. The other 2 escort ships immediately turned toward them, their weapons charging. "Evasive maneuvers," Kane ordered.
"Harper, I need everything you've got."
The diplomatic vessel, pushed far beyond its design limits, began a desperate dance through space. Valdari energy beams lit up the darkness around them, each one capable of destroying their ship if it connected. Reed managed to get a shot at the second cruiser, but this time the aliens were ready. Their shields held, and return fire forced the Harmony's Edge into a steep dive. "Shields down to 40%, Harper reported. "I don't know how much more of this we can take." Kane gritted his teeth. They had damaged 1 enemy ship, but 2 were still firing at them, and the cargo vessels were calling for reinforcements. Soon this area of space would be swarming with Valdari warships. "Reed, target the cargo ships. Even if we can't take out the escorts, maybe we can damage their supplies." It was a desperate gambit, but it worked. The cargo vessels were unarmored and vulnerable. 2 of them exploded under the Harmony's Edge's fire before the remaining escorts could intercept. But the victory came at a cost. A Valdari energy beam struck their starboard engine, sending shock waves through the ship. Emergency lights flickered on as main power fluctuated. "Engine 2 is offline," Harper called out. "We're losing power to weapons and shields." Kane made a quick decision. All remaining power to engines. "Get us out of here." The damaged ship limped away from the battle, leaving behind 1 destroyed Valdari cruiser and 2 cargo ships. It wasn't much, but it was something. They had struck back against the empire that was trying to destroy humanity. As they fled, Bradley managed to intercept more Valdari communications. The news was not good. Earth's outer defenses had fallen. Several colonies had surrendered rather than face total destruction. The human fleet was scattered and taking heavy losses. "Captain," Dr. Patel said quietly, "I'm receiving a transmission from Nexus Prime. It's Ambassador Voss." Kane felt a surge of hope. "Put her through." Voss's voice was strained but determined. "Marcus, if you're receiving this, then you're still alive. Thank God, listen carefully. I don't have much time. The Valdari are moving their main fleet toward Earth for a final assault. They're confident that one more major battle will end human resistance." The transmission crackled with interference. "There's something else. Dr. Patel's analysis of their shield systems is being distributed to every surviving human ship. The Resistance is learning from your attack on that convoy. You've shown them that the Valdari can be hurt." Kane felt a mixture of pride and despair. They had done something meaningful, but it might not be enough. "Marcus," Voss continued, "I know what you're thinking. The odds are impossible. The Valdari have us outnumbered and outgunned. But remember what makes us human. We don't give up, ever. Find a way to keep fighting. Find a way to make them pay for what they've done." The transmission ended in static. Kane looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of determination and fear in their faces that he felt himself. They were 1 damaged ship against an entire empire. They had lost friends and family in the attacks on human worlds. Their own survival was measured in hours, not days, but they were still free. They were still fighting. And as long as they drew breath, the war was not over. Kane turned to Reed. Plot a course for the next Valdari target. We've got work to do. In the darkness of space, the lonely human ship changed course, heading toward its next impossible battle against overwhelming odds. Behind them, the Valdari Empire's vast fleets continued their advance toward Earth. Confident in their inevitable victory, they had no idea that they had just awakened something in humanity that would change the course of the war. The Valdari had expected quick submission from a peaceful species. Instead, they had created an enemy that would never stop fighting. The real war was just beginning. 2 weeks had passed since the attack on the Valdari convoy, and the Harmony's Edge had become something no one ever expected. A legend. Operating alone in the vast darkness of space, Kane and his crew had struck at Valdari supply lines, communication stations, and isolated patrol groups with deadly precision. Their ship bore the scars of a dozen battles. Hull plating was patched with whatever materials Chief Engineer Harper could find. Half their weapons systems had been jury-rigged back together after taking damage. The crew had been reduced to 160 people, with many injured and all exhausted, but they kept fighting. Kane stood in what remained of the bridge, studying the latest intelligence reports. Communications Officer Bradley had become expert at intercepting Valdari transmissions and breaking their encryption codes. The news was mixed. Human resistance was growing stronger across the galaxy, inspired by reports of the lone human ship that refused to surrender. But the Valdari were also adapting, sending larger forces to hunt them down. "Captain," Dr. Patel called from her station, "I'm detecting something unusual on long-range sensors. There's a massive energy buildup in the Kepler system." Kane frowned. Kepler was one of humanity's newest colonies, home to nearly 1 million people. "What kind of energy buildup?" "It looks like the Valdari are positioning their largest fleet units there. This isn't a normal occupation force, Captain. This is something much bigger." Tactical Officer Reed brought up a holographic display of the system. "Sir, based on the ship concentrations, I think they're planning to use Kepler as an example. Complete destruction of the colony to break human morale." Kane felt cold anger building in his chest. The Valdari had already conquered most human worlds, but apparently that wasn't enough. Now they wanted to commit genocide to make a point. "How many ships are we talking about?" he asked. "At least 200 capital vessels, sir, including Admiral Krix Vorthon's flagship, the Devastator. Intelligence reports indicate Vorthon is the architect of the entire invasion plan." Kane had heard of Admiral Vorthon. He was considered the Valdari Empire's greatest military mind, responsible for conquering dozens of other species over the past century. If Vorthon was personally overseeing the destruction of Kepler, it meant the Valdari considered this a critical operation. Harper joined them on the bridge, wiping grease from her hands. "Captain, I've managed to get our main engines back online, but we're running low on everything. Ammunition, spare parts, medical supplies. We can't keep this up much longer." Kane nodded grimly. He had known this moment would come. They had done far more damage than anyone thought possible, but they were just one ship against an empire. Eventually their luck would run out. "Sir," Bradley interrupted, "I'm receiving a transmission from the resistance cell on New Terra. They say they have urgent information for us. Put them through." A crackling voice came over the speakers. "Harmony's Edge, this is Colonel Sarah Martinez of the New Terra Resistance. We've been monitoring your operations. Impressive work. Thank you, Colonel. What's your situation?" "Bad and getting worse. But we've discovered something important about Admiral Vorthon's operation at Kepler. They're not just planning to destroy the colony. They're testing a new weapon system, something called a planet killer." Kane exchanged looks with his officers. A planet killer was exactly what it sounded like. A weapon capable of destroying entire worlds. "If this weapon test succeeds," Martinez continued, "they plan to use it on Earth. Complete destruction of the human homeworld to end the war permanently." The bridge fell silent. Kane felt the weight of this new knowledge crushing down on him. Not only were they facing the destruction of Kepler colony, but the successful test would doom Earth and every remaining human world. "Colonel, what kind of timeline are we looking at?" 3 days, Captain. In 72 hours, they'll fire the weapon at Kepler. If it works as designed, Earth will be next. After the transmission ended, Kane called a meeting of his senior staff. They gathered in the damaged conference room, a far cry from the diplomatic chambers where this war had begun. Options? Kane asked simply. Reed spoke first. Sir, with respect, we don't have any good options. Even if we could somehow get close to Admiral Vorthon's fleet, our weapons couldn't penetrate the defenses of a ship like the Devastator. What about the planet killer weapon itself? Dr. Patel asked. If it's a prototype, it might have vulnerabilities. Harper shook her head. Even if it does, we'd have to get through 200 enemy ships to reach it. And we're barely holding together as it is. Kane stared at the tactical display showing the Valdari fleet positions. 200 ships against one damaged vessel with exhausted crew and depleted supplies. By any reasonable calculation, it was suicide. But then he thought about the 1 million people on Kepler Colony who had no idea what was coming. He thought about Earth, and all the human worlds that would follow if this weapon test succeeded. He thought about Ambassador Voss and Dr. Patel, still prisoners on Nexus Prime, probably wondering if anyone was still fighting. Dr. Patel, he said slowly, your analysis of Valdari shield frequencies has worked perfectly so far. Could you apply the same principles to a much larger ship? The Devastator? Captain, it's not just larger. It's an entirely different class of vessel. The power requirements alone would be... She stopped, her eyes widening as she understood what he was suggesting. You're thinking about a direct assault on Admiral Vorthon's flagship, she said. The thought had occurred to me. Reed leaned forward. Captain, even if we somehow got lucky and disabled the Devastator, that wouldn't stop the planet killer, and we'd be destroyed in the process. Kane was quiet for a long moment, thinking through possibilities that all seemed impossible. Then a new idea began to form in his mind. What if we didn't try to destroy the planet killer? He said. What if we tried to redirect it? Harper frowned. Redirect it where? Into the Valdari fleet itself. The room erupted in discussion as everyone tried to understand what Kane was proposing. Dr. Patel was the first to grasp the full implications. Captain, you're talking about turning their own weapon against them, but the targeting systems would be heavily protected, and we'd have to time everything perfectly. Could it work? Kane asked. Dr. Patel hesitated. Theoretically, yes. If we could access their command systems during the weapon's charging sequence, we might be able to alter its targeting parameters. But the risks are enormous, Kane finished. But so are the stakes. He looked around the table at his officers. These people had followed him through impossible battles for weeks. They had fought against overwhelming odds and never given up. Now he was asking them to attempt something that was beyond desperate. I won't order anyone to go on this mission, he said. It's almost certainly a one-way trip. Anyone who wants to leave on an escape pod before we begin the approach, I'll understand completely. Reed was the first to respond. Captain, with respect, if you think we're abandoning you now, you haven't been paying attention for the past 2 weeks. Harper nodded. We've come this far together. We'll finish it together. Dr. Patel smiled grimly. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't blow up the wrong fleet. Kane felt a surge of pride in his crew. They were exhausted, outnumbered, and facing almost certain death. But they were still ready to fight for humanity's survival. All right then, he said. Harper, I need you to work another miracle. Give me everything this ship has left. Reed, start planning our approach to the Valdari fleet. Dr. Patel, figure out how to hack into a planet-killer weapon system. As his officers dispersed to their tasks, Kane remained in the conference room, staring at the tactical display. In 72 hours, the Valdari would test their ultimate weapon. If they succeeded, the war would be over and humanity would be extinct. But if Kane and his crew could somehow pull off the impossible, they might turn the tide of the entire conflict. The Valdari had spent centuries conquering other species through overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything to protect what they loved. The Harmony's edge began to change course, heading toward the largest concentration of enemy ships in known space. Behind them, scattered human resistance cells received the news of their approach and began to understand what was being attempted. Admiral Crix Vorthon, confident in his position of absolute superiority, continued preparations for the weapon test that would finally crush human resistance. He had no idea that a single damaged ship was about to attempt the most desperate gambit in military history. The final battle was about to begin, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Harmony's edge approached the Kepler system like a ghost ship emerging from the darkness. 3 days of desperate preparation had transformed the battered diplomatic vessel into something its designers never intended. A weapon pointed at the heart of the Valdari Empire. Captain Kane stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as it filled with enemy contacts. Admiral Vorthon's fleet was even larger than intelligence reports had suggested. Nearly 300 ships surrounded the massive Devastator, which was itself the size of a small city. At the center of the formation, the planet-killer weapon was charging, its energy readings growing stronger by the hour. "Final systems check," Kane ordered. Chief Engineer Harper's voice came from engineering. "All systems are running at maximum efficiency, sir." "I've rerouted power from life support to weapons. We have about 30 minutes of air left, but our firepower has increased by 40%. Navigation systems optimized," reported Communications Officer Bradley. "Dr. Patel's frequency analysis is loaded into all targeting computers." Tactical Officer Reed looked up from his station. "Sir, the Valdari patrol pattern shows a gap in their outer perimeter that occurs every 18 minutes. If we time our approach perfectly, we might be able to get within 50,000 kilometers before they detect us." Kane nodded. 50,000 kilometers was still well outside the range of their weapons, but it would put them close enough to attempt their desperate plan. Dr. Patel joined him on the bridge, carrying a data pad filled with technical specifications. "Captain, I've analyzed the Planet Killer's power systems. The weapon draws energy from the Devastator's main reactor during its charging cycle. If we can overload that reactor at the precise moment the weapon fires, the resulting explosion will destroy everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Including us," Kane pointed out. "Including us," she confirmed, "but also including Admiral Vorthon's entire fleet." Kane looked around at his crew, 160 brave souls who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. They could have surrendered weeks ago and lived as prisoners of the Valdari Empire. Instead, they had chosen to fight for humanity's future, even knowing it would cost them their lives. "Signal from the Valdari fleet," Bradley announced. "Admiral Vorthon is beginning the weapon test sequence. The Planet Killer will fire in approximately 20 minutes. Kane felt his heart pounding. 20 minutes to save not just the colony on Kepler, but potentially all of humanity. 20 minutes to prove that sometimes the desperate courage of a few could change the fate of civilizations. "All hands, this is the captain," he said over the ship's intercom. "We are beginning our final approach. In a few minutes we will either save humanity or die trying. Either way, we will not go quietly into the darkness." He paused, thinking of all the people they were fighting for. The colonists on Kepler who had no idea death was approaching. The resistance fighters on dozens of worlds still struggling against Valdari occupation, Ambassador Voss and everyone else imprisoned by the aliens who had claimed to come in peace. "It has been my honor to serve with all of you," Kane continued. "History will remember what we do here today. The Valdari thought they could break humanity's spirit through fear and overwhelming force. They were wrong. We do not break. We do not surrender. We fight." The Harmony's edge accelerated toward the Valdari fleet. Its engines pushed far beyond safe operating parameters. Behind them, emergency lights flickered as power systems began to overload. "Entering the outer perimeter," Reed announced. "No detection yet." For several tense minutes they flew through space filled with enemy ships. Valdari cruisers passed close enough that Kane could see their weapon ports and shield generators. Any one of them could have destroyed the Harmony's edge with a single salvo, but the aliens were focused on their historic weapon test. "Detection," Reed suddenly called out. "Multiple ships turning toward us. They've spotted us." Alarms began sounding throughout the Valdari fleet. Energy weapons charged and missile launchers swiveled toward the lone human ship that had somehow penetrated their defenses. "Evasive maneuvers," Kane ordered. "Get us to the Devastator." The next few minutes were chaos. The Harmony's edge twisted and dove through space as hundreds of energy beams tried to track it. Harper performed miracles in engineering, keeping the overloaded engines running even as enemy fire struck their hull. "Shields down," Reed reported as another Valdari salvo found its mark. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. Kane ignored the damage reports. They only needed to survive for a few more minutes. "Dr. Patel, how close do we need to get to hack their systems?" 5,000 kilometers, Captain. "Close enough that our computer virus can penetrate their firewalls." Reed shook his head. "Sir, we'll never survive getting that close. They're concentrating all their fire on us." Kane made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of continuing their desperate charge toward the Devastator, He ordered a complete change of tactics. Harper, give me all remaining power to the communication system. Bradley, open a channel to Admiral Vorthan's flagship, sir. Bradley looked confused but complied with the order. Admiral Crix Vorthan's voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English. Captain Kane of the human vessel Harmony's Edge. Your reputation precedes you. I am impressed that you managed to reach our fleet, but your journey ends here. Admiral, Kane replied, I want to propose a trade. A trade? Vorthan sounded amused. What could you possibly offer that would interest the Valdari Empire? My surrender and the surrender of my ship in exchange for calling off the weapon test. The alien admiral laughed. Captain, you seem to have misunderstood your situation. I can take your surrender and proceed with the test. Your bargaining position is non-existent. Kane smiled grimly. Actually, Admiral, you're the one who has misunderstood the situation. While they had been talking, Dr. Patel had been working frantically at her station. The communication channel Kane had opened wasn't just for talking. It was also transmitting a carefully crafted computer virus directly into the Devastator's communication systems. Sir, Dr. Patel whispered, I'm in. I have access to their weapon control systems. Admiral Vorthan was still speaking, confident in his overwhelming superiority. Captain Kane, your species' tendency toward futile gestures is well documented. Surrender now, and I may allow your crew to live as prisoners. That's a generous offer, Admiral, Kane replied. But I have a counter-proposal. Instead of destroying Kepler Colony, why don't you fire that weapon at your own fleet? There was silence on the channel as Vorthan realized what was happening. Impossible. Our systems are secured against any form of intrusion. Dr. Patel would disagree with you, Kane said. She's quite good with computers. On her station, Dr. Patel's fingers flew across the controls as she accessed the planet killer's targeting systems. The weapon was fully charged and ready to fire. All she had to do was change its target coordinates. Weapon systems compromised, came a panicked voice from the Valdari fleet. The targeting system has been altered. Admiral Vorthan's voice was no longer amused. Captain Kane, you don't understand what you're doing. That weapon contains enough energy to destroy this entire star system. If you fire it into our fleet formation, the explosion will kill everyone, including your own crew. I understand perfectly, Kane replied. The difference between us, Admiral, is that you fight to conquer. We fight to protect, and sometimes protection requires sacrifice. Dr. Patel looked up from her station. Captain, I have control of the weapon. It's targeted on the center of their fleet formation. On your order. Kane thought of Ambassador Voss, probably watching from her prison cell on Nexus Prime. He thought of Earth and all the human worlds that would be saved if this gambit succeeded. He thought of the millions of people on Kepler Colony who would live to see tomorrow. Admiral Vorthan, he said, when you go home to whatever remains of your empire, tell them what you learned here. Tell them that humanity cannot be conquered, cannot be broken, and will never surrender. Tell them that we would rather die free than live as slaves. Fire, Kane ordered. Dr. Patel activated the planet killer weapon. The energy beam that lanced out from the Devastator was beyond description. It was a spear of pure destruction that could have cracked a planet's crust. Instead, it struck the center of the Valdari fleet formation. The explosion that followed was visible from neighboring star systems. Admiral Vorthan's mighty armada, the largest fleet the Valdari Empire had ever assembled, simply ceased to exist. Ships, weapons, and thousands of alien warriors were consumed in an instant by their own ultimate weapon. The Harmony's Edge, caught at the edge of the blast, was torn apart by the shockwave. But Kane and his crew had just enough time to see their impossible victory before the end came. 6 months later, Ambassador Elena Voss stood before the assembled representatives of both human and Valdari governments. The Valdari Empire, crippled by the loss of their largest fleet and their greatest admiral, had been forced to negotiate as equals. The war between our peoples is over, she announced to the gathering, not because diplomacy succeeded, but because brave individuals proved that some things are worth fighting for. She looked directly at the Valdari delegation, many of whom still seemed shocked by their defeat. You came to us claiming to offer peace, but you brought only subjugation. You thought you could break humanity's spirit through fear and overwhelming force. You learned that you were wrong. High Counselor Thane Mordak, the same alien who had trapped her in the failed peace talks, spoke with considerably less arrogance than before. Ambassador Voss, the Valdari Empire acknowledges that we underestimated humanity's Resolve. We are prepared to discuss genuine peace terms. Voss nodded. Good, because this time we negotiate as equals. And if you ever threaten humanity again, remember the lesson of the Harmony's Edge. We do not break. We do not surrender. We fight. The new treaty that emerged from these negotiations was nothing like the surrender document the Valdari had originally demanded. It established true equality between the species, with guarantees of independence and mutual respect. In the months that followed, statues were erected on every human world commemorating Captain Marcus Kane and the crew of the Harmony's Edge. Their sacrifice had saved not just humanity, but had shown the galaxy that even the mightiest empire could be brought low by the courage of those who refused to accept defeat. The Valdari Empire never again attempted to conquer another species. They had learned that some victories come at too high a price, and that sometimes the smallest ship can cast the longest shadow. And in the deep space where the great battle had been fought, a memorial beacon was placed to mark the spot where one human warship had faced an entire alien army, and proved that heroes are not measured by the size of their fleet, but by the size of their courage. The age of true galactic peace had begun, built on the foundation of those who chose to fight rather than submit, and who proved that freedom is always worth the ultimate price.